Hi, my name is Angela Harple, and I'm the nutrition coordinator here at CPCD, and I am quickly going to go over EHS specific information. So you may not initially be in an EHS classroom, but you may end up in one at some point. So we want to make sure that everybody has this information so that you're prepared, because we do have those younger students in these classrooms. So I'm going to quickly go over infant production records. Required meal components, then we'll go over breast milk formula, handling and storage, and then introduction of solid foods. So first we're going to go over infant production records, and these are two forms, and there's two separate forms. One is for birth through 5 months, and then we have one for those 6 through 11 months. Each of them have different foods that they will eat, and so that's why there's two different production records for them. What is the same is that at the end of each week or the end of each month, you need to get these back. You need to either email them to either myself or Kelsey so that we can keep them on file. They are recorded a week at a time, so you may send them at the end of each week, or you can keep them for a month and then send them all at once. It's completely up to you. So this is what the birth through 5 months production record will look like. And when they are birth through 5 months, they are going to be exclusively infant formula fed or breast milk. And so those are the only things that you're going to be recording. Sometimes as you start to reach 5 months, they'll be eating some solid foods potentially at home, which is perfectly fine. If the parents are doing that at home, you want to mimic what they're doing, so you can also give them baby food or table food if that's what they're doing. You just would not record that on this form. This form will only be the amount of formula or breast milk that you give them. You're also not going to write down how much they consume. You're going to write down how much you offer. And so there's different amounts that you're going to offer these students. And so for breakfast, lunch, and snack, they're going to get anywhere between 4 to 6 ounces. You may offer less and then offer more at a later time. So if an infant is not going to eat 4 or 6 ounces at one time, you can break that up and do it in multiple feedings. You're just gonna still record how much you offer at each meal. So the next form is going to be the 6 to 11 months. These students are still also going to be receiving breast milk or infant formula, but they're going to start potentially incorporating more foods. So baby food or table food, depending on their development. And this is something that you want to talk to the parents about so that you make sure you're doing what they're doing at home. Once they are developmentally ready for food, there's a couple different groups that you will offer. So the grayed out portion of this form, you can offer one or more of those items. And then there'll always be some sort of fruit or vegetable component included. But the grayed out portion, you can do just one or you can do multiple of those. You're also only going to write down what you offer, not how much they eat. If there's a food that they're not eating, so if you do not offer any cheese, you're just going to write 0. And then once they're creeping up closer to the 11th month age, they're going to start probably eating a bit more and maybe getting multiple things from these food groups. So you'll always just record the amount that you offer for each one. So this is the meal pattern for infants 0 to 5 months. Like I said, it's exclusively breast milk or formula, unless their parents are offering things at home, and then of course you'll offer those as well. But you'll only record, or we're only required to provide breast milk or formula. For every student in an EHS classroom, 0 to 11 months, we're going to have an infant feeding form on file, and that's going to state whether or not they're getting formula, what kind of formula, and then also if they're getting breast milk. Those are to be kept in your classroom. So then for the meal patterns for 6 to 11 months, same kind of things we talked about on the form. There's 2 different groups. Excluding the formula and breast milk, which will be offered. There's 2 different groups of food foods that you can offer. So the fruit and or vegetable is one, and then you have the other. So it can be some cereal, some meat, some eggs, some cheese, yogurt, all those kind of things. And once again, you're only going to write down what you offer, not what they eat. Always communicate with the parents that you make sure that you're mimicking what they're doing at home, and then add new foods as you feel as though they're ready or the parents express that they would like them to. Like I said, so they'll be offered those foods as they're developmentally ready. If you don't offer any, you will write a 0, and then kind of progress from there, because once they hit 12 or 1 year old, they're going to start getting our food, so we kind of want them to be ready for that. If there's any concerns or the child is not developing or kind of getting more into the foods and finger foods and those kind of things, you can always reach out to myself and we can have a conversation with the parents, or you can always talk to the parents about what it's going to be like once they hit 1 year and the kind of foods that they'll be getting, so that they're prepared. So handling and storage of breast milk. Anytime you receive a bottle of breast milk, it needs to be labeled with the baby's full name and then the date that the milk was pumped. And then you're going to want to refrigerate it right away, and you want to store it in the back of the refrigerator where it's always the coldest. And then if possible, you're going to want to fill the bottles to the minimum required amount. But like I said, we don't want to waste any. So if you know the child's not going to eat a full bottle's worth, 4 to 6 ounces or 6 to 8 ounces, you can fill them to the amount that you know that they'll consume, so that you don't end up having to waste any if you know they're not going to eat it within the amount of time that it's still good. So these are those times. So for breast milk use and storage, freshly pumped breast milk, if it's not refrigerated, you have to use it within 4 hours. But once you receive breast milk, you should be putting it into the refrigerator, and then it's good for 3 days. Then once you start feeding, you only have 2 hours to finish. So that's where that comes in. If you know that the baby's not going to drink it all, you can portion it appropriately and then feed later, so that we don't waste any. You're going to want to thoroughly wash your hands, and then you have the option to wear gloves, but it's not required. You're going to gently swirl to mix the breast milk, because it will separate. If it needs to be warm, do not put it in the microwave. You're going to warm it under running water and then test it before you feed. Discoloration is common. If you're ever concerned, you just want to talk to the parents. Then we have infant formula. So you're also going to wash your hands. You may or may not wear gloves if you don't want to. You're going to prepare, use, and store based off of the instructions on the formula can. Sometimes there'll be parents or a doctor or physician will ask it to be, ask formula to be prepared differently than what's on the label. And so you will obviously go by that, and we would have a doctor's note showing how it should be prepared. Otherwise, you're going to go off of what it says on the can. Ideally, you're going to want to make it right before you feed. Same thing applies. Do not microwave it, but you can warm it under water and then test before serving. Breast milk must be finished, consumed within an hour after you start. So once again, you kind of want to prepare what you know is going to be consumed, so that you don't end up having to waste any. All of these sheets, so from the previous slide, all of the times and ranges, and then as well as this sheet that has the times and the ranges, you should have a magnet on your refrigerator for reference, so that you don't have to remember those times. So introduction of solid foods. So you're going to want to have open communication with the parents and model what's happening at home. There are some signs that you can look for that makes you know that they're becoming ready to start to eat solid foods. And so they start to move their tongue up and down or side to side. They can sit up with support, meaning that they can sit in a chair and hold themselves up, a high chair or booster. They're going to open their mouths and prepare to receive food if there's seafood. And they're going to start to chew and have teeth. And then they might begin to hold food or feed themselves with their fingers. There's 3 different stages. So they start out liquid, typically go to pureed and then to solid foods. That's the typical, but you always want to talk to the parents to see what they're doing. So just some important reminders, you're going to want to serve breast milk or formula for the first year, allow for a transition period. Once they start to receive whole milk at 1, you're allowed for transition to that. So the other thing is if parents want to continue to breastfeed, that's perfectly fine. That is allowed. We want to support breastfeeding, so just make sure that's noted somewhere. Infants should always be held during bottle feedings. You do not allow the children to fall asleep with the bottle. Always watch the children while they're starting solid foods and starting to eat solid foods, and then talk to the parents as much as you can. So this is our information. This is my information and then Kelsey's. If there's ever any questions or you need anything, you can always reach out to us at any time. Thanks.